Hey everybody, it's Matt Michaels here on the DeFalco Files with the owner and creator of FSW, the future stars of wrestling here in Las Vegas, Mr. Joe DeFalco. And Joe, it was a big weekend for you. We'll get to talking about it, but how you doing after the show this week and getting prepared for the 21st?
I'm surviving. We had a new women's champion crowned. We moved some stories forward, so it was a pretty positive show. There wasn't really much to complain about.
It was a fairly packed show too. There was a lot of stuff going on. Um, Viva Van obviously wins the championship. Before we talk about that actual match, what did you think of the 3-way for the contender number one contendership to qualify to get into that match against Viva Van? How do you think Alice Blair handled herself, and how did the other women in the match do?
I think it all went really well. We were obviously trying to rebuild the women's division, and uh, by the end of the event, we have some really main event players in the mix. Obviously, Viva Maserati showed up at the end. As you recall, last week I told you I had sent the message out and got hung up on because you know Maz will explain it more, I assume, at the next show. But she felt if anybody was going to have a match, it was going to be them to have a match against her, and not her to be in a match against Viva.
Right.
So I think she was, you know, a little offended. She's been with FSW since the very beginning. And you know how it is. Everybody feels slighted. Everybody feels they're deserving of great things. And then they feel like Uncle Joe doesn't like them anymore, or whatever the case may be. It's like you're trying to put things into a situation, and she chose not to be a part of it, then chose to be a part of it. So I think Lilith Grimm, showed that she's definitely a worthy contender.
Yeah.
She brings a different style, a lot more power, the
Yeah.
power game in the women's division. And I think Rochelle Riveter moving out here, I was really not aware of her other than I heard she did the women's show in Vegas. And then she had hit me up about she was going to move here. And then there's Alice Blair who had to do double duty, and the crowd was behind her in the first match, but it seemed like there was people who were rooting for her in the second. But obviously Viva has really built a strong following, and that's what happens when we bring in somebody and then utilize them frequently.
Yeah.
In the past we had used Viva here and there, and they were kind of okay with her, but then they saw her as a mainstay, and now it's easier to get behind her. And the fact of the matter is that she's improved so much from when we first utilized her. The story I heard, never confirmed, was she had a WWE tryout and didn't fare very well. And instead of sulking and brooding in a corner, she went out there and worked her ass off, and now she's been reaping the benefits. I saw the post the day after. She has 5 championship belts throughout the West Coast.
Yeah.
So you're not just handed a belt because you're somebody's friend. And maybe
Right.
on one occasion, and maybe on two, but definitely not on 5. So she's obviously had to prove to the people that she's been working for that she's deserving of carrying that women's championship.
Yeah, I heard the same thing that you heard, and I think that the past year has showed what you can do with that motivation and how well you can represent yourself. I am a little worried about the FSW security because it seems like people just kind of can just show up out of the blue and jump anyone or challenge anyone. So I think you might not, you might want to step up, get some of those students there to patrol the dressing area back in the alley there.
Well, they're usually waiting for a fan to jump in. So when you have 8 of them, they're positioned really good. All 8 stand in one spot, but right next to the air conditioning unit.
The best security team that money can buy, Joe.
Yes. Thank God it's free.
When you look then towards survival of the fittest, I think I saw this week one of the announcement is that there will be a women's survival match. Is that confirmed?
Yeah, we're trying to. We're putting it together. Unfortunately, a couple people that I thought would be available, like Rochelle Riveter, is not. She's going back to Colorado. She's a bridesmaid in a wedding, and she was like, "Oh, I apologize if I wasn't in the wedding." I'm like, "Yeah, don't worry about it." It came about because we've got a couple of new additions that we are debuting on September 4th. Milo will be back September 4th. Viva's going to be there September 4th, and so we're going to have a decent amount of women available for September 4th. So I'm like, well, let's, a girl by the name of Johnny Robbie, who's starting to make some waves. She was scheduled for September 4th also. So it's like, well, if we can get her on the 21st, we know we got Atlas Blair, and now we're working on, a Delilah Doom, for example. And, Eli is booked. And since they're married, maybe there's a good way to get her in. So we're looking to do a 3-on-3 and, again, have to reach out to Maserati and see what her schedule, entails.
Right.
If we did it the week before, she would have been in Trinidad and Tobago. So, that's a big deal, getting those opportunities. So, we're definitely trying to, bring Lilith Grimm back, so we're hoping to do a 6-way, well, not a 6-way, more of a 6-person tag,
And with the survival of the fittest, just so fans who are not familiar, does it work for you in those survival matches essentially as a Survivor Series style match where it is a 6-person tag, but it is an elimination match? That's correct, right?
Well, we've used them both ways, so we haven't decided. It's also based on timing. We can't have 3 elimination matches. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like, for 6 people and doing an elimination match, these matches are going to take 20, 25 minutes. We got Jay Vidal and Matt Vandagriff, and that's going to be Matt's No Limits Championship against Jay Vidal's FSW career. We just saw Damian Drake instilled as the #1 contender and looking to be the first, Vegas born and raised Nevada state champion, so, Clutch and Nick Xander, they're going to be on the show on the 21st, and we have TBD and Hammerstone and a possible 4th member to take on the faction. And after what went down between the Suavacitos and Sky High and Bret the Threat, we will be incorporating them in a match also. So, plus Circle 6 is running a show the day before at our arena. So there's going to be some guys in town. I've reached out to a couple. I forgot Sammy Callahan's running the same day as us in Ohio. So Zachary Wentz and Jake Christ, who we've had some history with as Wentz, with the Rascals being there.
Right.
We were looking to instill them in the spots. And when I hit up Jake Christ, who's hit me up on numerous occasions, then I remembered, oh, yeah, Sammy's got a show. So, Remy has unfinished business with Jake Christ from when the gentlemen were supposed to wrestle the Christ brothers. And Sammy and Jessica Havoc made the flight from England, but the Christ brothers had to be put on the next flight, and they literally showed up as we were breaking down the ring. They popped into Sam's Town. We could have did an impromptu falls count anywhere, no arena, no fans in the arena match.
Oh man, you just mentioned Sky High with with Bodie Young Prodigy there. As the junior captain of the flight ship. They took a loss to Bret the Threat and Los Suavacitos. What did you think about the shirts that those three guys wore out to the ring?
It's whatever. It's the emo generation that they think they need to go out there, and it's like, if you step back and you say, hey, what's a good way to make sure that I don't get booked in the future? Because, the truth is there is no storyline with Joe DeFalco and the Suavacitos and Bret the Threat. And it's like social media has created, like, if you watch social media and look at Bret the Threat, this guy is fucking feuding with everybody in the world.
True.
He has a comment about every single person. Oh, Bret, Damian Drake, number one contender. I made him fall asleep over there, and, you got this guy and, I beat him over there. And it's like, the funny thing about Bret is he never remembers his losses, which I guess is good when you think you're the greatest of all time, that, there's wins and there's losses. It's like, how about you concentrate on what's in front of you? I always got a kick. And again, I always got a kick out of Scott Steiner getting on the microphone and being in a feud with this guy, but still having the ability to call out Ric Flair, and it led to absolutely nothing.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's like, we've seen it in the past where people, they don't look at it from what it really is you're going into business for yourself.
Right.
And, we've seen that recently, and we've seen that recently, with Bret the Threat, happening in a match with he was in. So there's only so much matches, maybe Bret the Threat wants a gauntlet match with 7 people. And since he's so good, maybe he should wrestle Remy and Hammerstone and Bodie and Damian Drake. Hell, who needs a gauntlet match? Just have 6-on-1 because Bret the Threat is so good.
You know what? I think, though, with that theory, you'd probably sell some of the most ticket quantities you'd ever sell for people to see Bret go against 6 people who would absolutely destroy him.
Well, yeah, we'd make even more if we were selling them to the actual wrestlers, because I think they would pay money.
So basically, you've never done this concept, right? You've never done a pay-to-play wrestle match, right? So you could actually, charge the guys, $25 to get in there and beat on Bret?
Yeah, and, that's definitely, a good idea. All the money generated will go to charity, the Joe DeFalco Foundation.
Right.
And, even Rocky T might want to pay money to get his hands on him again.
What's interesting is I'm waiting to see if those T-shirts become one of the best sellers for Bret and the Suavacitos. If they're selling them at Survival of the Fittest, I'm sure there will be.
The only sales he's going to make is probably to about 4 fans and probably 20 disgruntled wrestlers. Which is a good number, 24. That's what you usually have to order to get that extra $1 discount,
right?
From the T-shirt places. But the good news is I am in talks with my own shirt people to produce for Survival of the Fittest the Suavacitos shirts. Remy Marcel, recommended it to me a few months back, but now it sure seems like I think that would be a much bigger seller than their version of the shirt. And the good thing is I don't have to kick back Danny any money. I could just take it off from what he still owes me from the dues. So I get to keep all 100%.
That might not be a bad way to go, Danny, if you're listening. I get behind that because that, take care of your dues, which I'm sure if you're behind on the dues, man, that's a hard hole to get out of.
And he brags about being suspended because he was behind on dues. Like it's a great feat. Like, so you didn't get to train or wrestle, yet you want to be this great wrestler, and you weren't allowed to because you kept getting too far behind, and then you brag about it like it's a good thing.
Oh man! Wow. Yeah, I see. I understand now what you talk about when you talk about the headaches of the school. So that's very interesting. That's amazing.
I walk in the door and I'm already hearing complaints, and it's like, oh, another guy wins a match, and now it's like 2 hours before the show. First thing I do when I walk in the door, oh, what am I doing? Oh, you're in a 6-man tag. Oh, can I get a singles match? Oh yeah, bro. The show's already hasn't been booked at all. I'm glad you came up with the idea. It's like you're winning in a match, and you finally have a winning streak, but you're still not happy. It's the same thing with Danny complaining about being respected, but he just came off wrestling a tag title match.
Yeah.
It's like no matter what, you're not going to make everybody happy. And again, I understand the eagerness. And of course, it's like, yeah, I get somebody who's in a 6-man prefers to have a singles match and wants to showcase. But it's like, well, your other option is, as I said, well, then don't work the show.
Yeah.
It's like I went out of my way to get you on the show because we're booking for an event that we're having on in 2 weeks that we need to get these certain matches mixed in. So I'm still making room for some people that don't have per se a storyline or a feud that they're involved with. And it's like, oh, well, what about me? And I get it. Everybody needs to be concerned with themselves. But I always try to say, when you're going out elsewhere, a lot of times you'll walk into the place and you'll be pretty much told right then and there what you're doing. And, I'm not far. I see you at training. And, yeah, you may hit me up 5 days earlier, but there's always that last day or two that we're filling in the final spots. It's not that hard to go on Messenger and ask me what's going on. It's always like the guys who always like to pitch something as the doors are about to open. Like, get the fuck out of here. It's like you have all week. You can message me. If you have an idea, I'm willing to listen. But I'm not willing to listen 30 minutes before the doors open.
Right. You mentioned we got Damian Drake, who is now challenging for Greg Sharp's Nevada State title. Do you think that just the way that his injury happened in the time period that it happened, that even though he had a great feud with Matt Vandagriff, Damian kind of has gotten lost in that shuffle and was kind of finding himself again, and apparently took a hot tub time machine back to the 80s and has now found himself, wearing sunglasses at night, per se. Do you think that this is the right path, that he's onto something going forward to kind of help that momentum that he's had but had trouble finding exactly who he is after the dissolving of the Unguided.
Well, I'll be honest. I thought the Unguided was going to have a very long run. I think the initial existence of the Unguided was the fans weren't really behind them, but as Vandagriff grew and the love for Damian Drake existed from day one, that they were a very popular tag team despite what some of their actions were,
Right.
and they had to go through two injuries. First Matt Vandagriff was hurt, and then they had to recycle back into the mix. Then they get the tag titles, and then we're coming up on the anniversary, and then there's the breakup, and then there's the comeback, and then there's the feud with Matt Vandagriff, which culminates on New Year's Eve. So now we're looking at January 1st. Well, from January 1st, we're already into August,
Yeah.
and Damian Drake has done nothing but win matches. Now, storyline wise, he had been involved in continuous stories for a year or so, and that's what happens. Now you finish your feud. Now where do we go? Things take time. He has to be rebuilt, whatever it is. And now, Gregory Sharp and him, they've been in FSW for an extremely long time. And if they have had a match, I couldn't tell you when. So
Yeah.
it just goes to show that despite there being a bunch of guys who have been in FSW for long periods of time, they haven't really faced off in any way, shape, or form, and now Damian Drake and Gregory Sharp is a very, very fresh, matchup.
Yeah.
And for the Nevada State title, there's a lot of meaning in that. You know what I mean? And it's like, after that, Matt came back and, he's been a house of fire and he's put on some of the best matches, that we've seen, over the past year. Between him and Jay Vidal, it's a toss up of who's had more of the best matches on the show. You know what I mean? So it's like, Damian Drake has the opportunity now. Another example is Graves. He was the champ, lost the title, involved with some stuff with Hammerstone, and it's kind of not been seen in a long time. Not has anything to do with him. It's putting him in a position, and nobody wants to see Graves murder Brandon G or Ricky Tenacious. You know what I mean?
Right.
And with Graves positioned as a top babyface, and then you got Hammerstone as the top babyface, and then Juicy and Toa, and they were in position, and then Toa gets signed, and then Juicy got banged up a bit and needed to take some time off. But after the issues with MK, basically the crowd wanted to get behind him. So it's like, who's a top tier guy for Graves to feud with? We've
Right.
tried to bring back Tito. We've tried to bring in Bateman on more occasions. But unfortunately, the schedule, just like for 21st, Tito and Bateman and 1% and Danny Limelight and all these guys, they're booked for New Japan the same day we're running. So, a Bateman and a Tito Escondido, now makes us need two top baby faces per se. And
Right.
if Hammerstone's involved with, say, the faction, well, now Graves is a main guy to wrestle guys like Bateman and Tito,
Yeah.
which they already had a match in the tag where Tito pinned Graves. So, there's something there. So it's trying to get those guys back. Remy Marcel, another guy, he's kind of in no man's land. He just lost the championship to Gregory Sharp. But over the last few months, he's gotten to wrestle with Richard Holiday twice, and Adam Brooks, a Willie Mack, a Gregory Sharp. But now it's like, okay, you've been here, and now you lost. the championship, and now it's time to put people back in the mix, and he's, talked about certain guys that we've talked with about bringing in. But again, because of scheduling and things like that,
Right.
Sammy's running in August 21st. And there's going to be a handful of guys that are in Vegas that we would use that now we can't use because they're working that show. So it's like, people aren't always available. Adrian Quest was another guy, and he's working New Japan. We were talking about a 4-on-4 survival series match, survival of the fittest with, the Suavacitos with Adrian Quest, who's basically the guy who helped catapult them. We haven't seen him in a while because he's had some great success over, this past year. But to get him back, he's a guy who's been around for a long time, another highly talented individual. And, we can't utilize him. So, October, we booked Karrion Kross. And for some reason now he tells me he can't make the show. I have no idea why, but, he's canceling on us.
Apparently he's buying tickets to other wrestling shows and then coming out of the audience and just beating people up.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Speaking of that, how do you think that went when you saw him mix into SmackDown the other week last week?
Tremendous, his main roster run was pretty much non-existent. They totally changed what he was from the NXT Karrion Kross that Triple H brought in. Obviously loved what he was doing with Scarlett. As they said, he had the best entrance in wrestling, and that was the secondary, not even show, the secondary company of WWE, and he got over in that situation. And Triple H ain't playing and didn't bring him back to attack Madcap Moss and solidify him into the mid-card status. He put the two biggest stars of SmackDown, or maybe even the company, on notice. We all knew Drew McIntyre was in position to be the guy to work with Roman Reigns. And, now all of a sudden, Kross has jumped the line, and Triple H has positioned him as an equal to those top two guys. So, you can't ask for anything more, if you're Kross. The time away actually benefited him because with Triple H in charge, I talked about it on the radio show I do. It was like Dexter Lumis was another guy that was, a Triple H guy that he really liked him a lot. And boom, he shows up. Sean Ricker, Max Dupree, he was supposedly out, might be out of a job. But Triple H was the guy who got him in the NXT, and he reinserted him into not the greatest gimmick in my opinion, but kept him, working and a part of that, as a mouthpiece. I don't know how good the girl can talk, but we know with Max Dupree, man, I hate calling him that too. With Sean Ricker, could speak, and if somebody can get that idea over, at least, we know his track record, so there should be, something good there. It's also trying to okay, who are Triple H guys? Well, you got Keith Lee. Well, he's signed. You got William Regal. Well, he's signed. Don't think Road Dogg won't be back in, maybe by the next time we do this show. There's guys that were tried and true and Triple H guys and guys who love, most people thought after Gargano was done with everything, him and Candice LeRae would go to AEW. But again, big proponent, Triple H. Now it's like, hey, now the rumors are flowing again. Gargano. Ciampa actually getting pushed. He went to the main roster and was just nothing and wasn't even getting entrances. And now they have him win a tournament, and he beats AJ Styles to get a shot at Lashley. He doesn't win, but he gets positioned as a guy who's definitely a threat, and I could see them building up strong also. So,
and coming out in the Harley robe, I think was such a huge statement. Not only is it tied to his, his training, but it's giving such a high praise by allowing just to come out in Harley Race's robe. And then I always thought Lashley to me is just he's not my cup of tea. Ciampa made him look good, and it was great to see.
And even in the more in the old days, because now everything's more of just a prop. But Lashley's a guy who should always be in the mix for the heavyweight championship. Him being the U.S. champion is almost like a step down, in my opinion. It's like, hey, we'll give you this. It's like, how about you just find a big feud for him to deal with? You know what I mean? It's like, for Gunther, it's a step up because he was never a champion. Now you get to showcase him in the Intercontinental. Guy like Ricochet, I could see good things with him because of Triple H, And I like Ciampa in the green when he came out with The Miz at SummerSlam, too, by the way.
Yeah, that was,
very, very conformed. But you see those guys, and it's funny because you say, the younger guys, Ciampa, and these guys are all in their mid to late 30s. You know what I mean? And it's like, but they're new guys or fresh guys because of the fact that they hadn't had that huge success in WWE, which, regardless of what everybody wants to say, is the be-all, end-all. When you make it there, it's kind of New York. You make it there, you made it anywhere. And, as great as the Young Bucks are, unless they have that run in WWE, Kenny Omega is another guy where there's so many people who are not aware of him, and how great is he? That's great, but he never performed there. Even Adam Cole, it was NXT. He never got that big time run. And regardless, everybody my age, your age, 30-something people, it was WWE, 20-something people. AEW just came along a few years ago. Ring of Honor would be happy if they drew 600 or 700 people. WWE would consider it a failure if they had an event and it drew 10,000 people for a paper. You know what I mean? So, there's a reason why they're a multi-billion-dollar company. So, you can have great success and you can make a living in New Japan and AEW and Impact or whatever it is, but the pinnacle is WWE. So, regardless of the success Kross had, that's what he was going to vindicate himself was, I made it in WWE. Because when you make it in WWE, 20 years down the line, it's a lot easier to get booked at that Toy Con and make, a minimum of $10,000 for an appearance.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, shit, look at it.
What they want. And I think now with Triple H, it makes it a much more fun working environment. And I think more people are going to be interested. Look at the things. Miro can say whatever, but he's signed for 4 more years 6 or 8 months ago. Well, he's barely been used for a year and a half. So you thought it was no way I'm going, as bad as it might be in AEW, it was way worse in WWE for him. But Rusev Day was the reason why he got that big contract in AEW. And why they don't use him, I have no knowledge. I have no idea. It's like Brian Cage, but Miro was a main event guy in WWE for some time. And when he came in, it seemed like a big deal and, lost by the wayside. A lot of people thought he was going to win that, championship against Pac, who, again, another guy who people look at as like, man, this guy's the shit. Not the shits. He's the shit. Like, he should be a main dude. And he's even, I know he had those early issues with the visas and things like that. But there's so many guys you think would be major players moving over that have kind of been lost by the wayside.
which is remarkable too, because between AEW and adding in ROH, they have 14 active titles. So if you can't get these guys in good positions when you have that many belts, then you're doing something wrong. And I mean, it's kind of sad too, because of the fact that with what's going on with Warner Brothers, everything just seems like this could. You don't want to see it crash and burn because there's so many guys that are working because of that opportunity. And at the same rate, you see the red flags already going up, going, man, this could be a fucking train wreck if things aren't kind of railed in. One more thing on WWE. Let me ask you this. This coming week, you're going to get a heat wave on NXT. You're going to get Zoey versus Mandy for the title.
Mark it down. The lock of the year, baby.
Well, here's my question, and this goes into the thought process of a promoter, and let me see what you make of this. So on Raw, we get announced that Nikita Lyons and Zoey Stark are going to be a tag team in the tournament for the women's championships. On NXT, we get kind of a backstage thing where they're excited about doing this. And then in the match where Zoey defeats Cora Jade, and after Cora, is ushered out going after Roxanne, Mandy tries to take a cheap shot, and Zoey hits the finisher on Mandy, which to me signals that I'm thinking they don't put the title on her. And there's a good chance Nikita and Zoey end up the women's tag champs on the main roster. What do you think?
I think it's hard for them to. Zoey just came back, so she's trying to get her feet wet back in NXT for not being there for so long. On the Raw roster, there's so many names that the fans are more, knowing than her. I'm not sure if that's the direction to go. I think with Zoey winning the women's championship on NXT, now it gives them a little more juice on the Monday Night Raw thing because they got the NXT women's champion in there. So
Sure.
Now she's being perceived as a big deal. Now, instead of just two NXT girls wrestling in the mix, that to me looks like, the perfect spot. They don't have enough tag teams. They bring a couple people up from NXT and they take the L like usual. So
now, would you as a booker, would you use that opportunity? So if you put the belt on Zoey on Wednesday and then they have the match on Raw that coming Monday, let's say, would you take that opportunity because they're going to eat the L to have Nikita turn on Zoey and that becomes Zoey's first feud as champion in NXT?
No, I would probably at least have them use the momentum of her winning the championship because what is there? It's an 8-team tournament, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, well, on Monday you let them win, so the momentum builds. Now they're in the semifinals. Now if something's going to happen, maybe miscommunication, cost them the match. At least they got exposure on Raw. They won a match. She's the NXT champion. The idea is to make her a bigger deal on NXT
and bring some of those eyes from the main television over to NXT, right? That's one of the other reasons that you would do it, right? Is to
and you have the footage. Now you have the footage of them winning the match the first time. Then now you have more of a video package to put together. If it's the one match and they lose, who cares? It was a random match between, two people that had never tag teamed before. They're pretty much expected to lose. But now you're trying to capitalize on the momentum of the new women's champion. Kind of like after Braun Breaker won, they kind of put him in a couple of spots on Monday Night Raw just to acclimate him with the main roster fans. That way, if you don't know who he is, hey, by the way, it's Rick Steiner's kid, Scott Steiner's nephew. He's now the NXT champion. Hey, go check him out on Tuesday. We're going to have him lose to Ziggler and then, win. Because I don't even remember. Did he take the pin when he lost the belt, Braun Breaker? Or I remember it was a triple threat.
Yeah, I don't think he ate the pin. If I remember.
Either way, the fans don't remember. You know what I mean? It's like all we know is Braun Breaker lost the championship. Now he may not even have been pinned, but the thing was now the hope is maybe Rick Steiner's kid's the champ on NXT. Let's check it out. I see that it's on or whatever, and you go from there. I assume with Triple H being in charge now, he's still going to, want to ship people back and forth from NXT and vice versa, like what they did at Apollo Crews and Dolph Ziggler, and you add the big name guy. And, and again, it's a big name guy because he's on the main roster. So it's a bigger deal to NXT that Apollo Crews is there than it is that SmackDown lost Apollo Crews. Right. He was just a guy there.
And I think too the other thing is now with NXT having Shawn Michaels as the main liaison there, you got the two brothers in arms who know everything about all the talent on the roster, which is phenomenal considering Vince really didn't follow anything that was going on in NXT, which is still unreal. Speaking of like younger talent, getting people exposed, you had a couple people on the show that had some good showing, and one of the guys is Kevin Koa. Having him with MK, do you think that puts him in a very good position? Because he looks phenomenal, man, and it looks like this could be a good thing. Does MK give a little credibility to him and give him someone he can work with to, bring a little seasoning to Kevin?
Well, as I said before, making the fans realize a certain individual is not just here for a one and done. The fans don't care. They see a guy once, they're not expecting much. But now, just like we saw with Toa and Juicy, we put them to. Nobody knew who Toa was. He'll even tell you. He never wrestled in front of a crowd until we put him in. Right. And we put him in with MK because MK, like him or hate him, most people hate him. So if you see somebody with him, number one, you're not like, oh, look at who are these jobbers? Not that a 350-pound Samoan with a 400-pound Samoan or Hawaiian or whatever Juicy is, that people are going to look like, oh, yeah, they're a bunch of garbage, whatever. But the thing is, an AJ Mana and a Koa, now that they see them with MK, there's bigger expectations. They're expected, that MK's not going to go out and find two chooches to manage. You know what I mean? It's like you're seeing two big guys that are very aggressive. I can see down the line Koa and AJ, who are not a tag team. They're just two guys that MK brought in. But I could see them working a tag match with TBD, and it's a bunch of big boys. We saw Koa with Eldon Finau. And, that was a pretty good match. And, that was part of the showing that MK saw from Koa Plus, he knew him from Arizona, where he's part of the MK Army there. So it makes sense. It's like a Sam Adonis. He's always a member of the MK Army. It's just he doesn't wrestle here a lot.
Right.
But when he comes out, he's going to get the heat based off MK. And, Sam Adonis is another guy. I'd love to have him on a full-time basis. Unfortunately, he's in Pittsburgh, and he wrestles AAA, and he wrestles a lot of companies. So getting him frequently is a lot more difficult than just saying we'd love to have Sam Adonis at the show.
Yeah. And some of the other guys who, kind of have been around a little bit, you're establishing Blair Brody more, and you've gotten Jordan Oasis back on track. When you look at guys like that who are kind of on that little bit of that uprise, they're gaining steam, they're gaining a little bit of experience, they're looking a lot better. Does that start putting in motion in your mind where you can see them 6 months from now or a year from now within the mix of talent that you already have? Like, how do you mix those guys that are proving that they're working hard to make that next jump? How do you figure that in for what's going to be the future of FSW down the road?
You have to look at it differently. Blair Brody is very, very young. Right. He doesn't have a ton of matches under him, but you can definitely see some great potential. So he's a little easier to bring along at a slower pace. He's a guy that when we first looked at, we're like, hey, this is a guy on Future Shock who's going to be a mainstay, get some reps, get work in, has a great attitude, always inquisitive, always willing to listen, very humble. And, he's kind of like when we saw Class, and brought him on Future Shock. The idea was to build him up on Future Shock, to then, occasionally use him on High Octane, which we did. But he became too valuable to not use on High Octane. Right. And Blair Brody's in a position, not right now, but to be a main guy in 6 months to a year. So you need to bring him along to where now, again, the fans see this guy and they see him and understand he's part of the mix. Right. Jordan Oasis, on the other hand, he's a guy who's been doing it for a while. And, he was a guy up in Washington, and he was getting opportunities there. And then he came to Vegas, but then he went back to Cali and trained with Rikishi for a while. So he was kind of in and out. So, again, he was a guy that people seemed to like. Didn't have a lot of direction or even direction with his character or, what he was portraying. And, after he had lost to Damian Drake, I guess something clicked in his head because, again, he's another guy who wants, and is trying to get out there. Obviously there's talent. AEW used them. They didn't use everybody. They see things in people that they feel. He's a big dude. He's very athletic. And, it seems like the babyface Jordan Oasis didn't really get him very far. Right. So now, people say, hey, character, gimmick. But, sometimes you have to try to push the envelope to get yourself in a position. Sometimes it's jabbering with me. Sometimes it's, taking it upon yourself to show what you can do when you get the opportunity, and Jordan Oasis may not have been around as long as some of the guys in FSW who are above him. And he may have been there longer, but he wasn't in FSW. So, right. We're bringing him along and seeing what we got in him. But again, at that time, he was living elsewhere. Oh, right. I can come in whenever you want. Well, it's still, you're having to fly 3 hours to get here. So it's not always the easiest thing to do. Jared Diaz. He, hit me up. Oh, Joe, I want to come out. I'm going to come out. And then, we have him set. And then whether it's issues with flights and pricing and all the others, this dude's coming from Florida. So it's not cheap. And even though he wants to be a part of it, sometimes it just doesn't happen. So we can't, say, hey, you know what? We're going to bring this Jared Diaz and we're going to have him smash the No Limits division because we want him to wrestle Matt Vandagriff. And then all of a sudden, after 2 wins, he can't make any more shows. And we've just taken our number 2 and 3 contenders and they made them take losses when they didn't need to. So it's like, so the 2 of those guys are kind of polar opposites. Jordan Oasis is ready to wrestle the Matt Vandagriffs, while the Blair Brodies need time before he wrestles the Gregory Sharp. Now, is a Blair Brody Jordan Oasis match something that is appealing? I think to people it will be. I don't think it is as much now because Blair Brody hasn't been seen enough for people to get behind that match. So when we do have a type of match like that, we need to hope that we need to take the shot when we believe that it's the right time. Now, is the right time 6 weeks from now? Maybe. Is the right time 6 months from now? Maybe. We just have to, play it by ear.
As we get to looking at wrapping up this week, so if you had to choose and you were given the choice that of these 3 people, there's only one of them you can choose to work with for the rest of their career, let's say, would you take Jay Vidal, Matt Vandagriff, or Damian Drake?
I'm not one to take the 5th, but I'm going to have to take, the 5th. The thing is, they all have great upside. You know what I mean? And, then there's also certain things that, Matt Vandagriff in the past, his issues were the character, the promos, now he's gotten the character. Well, now he needs to work on the promos. Over the years, Damian Drake, he's gotten a lot better on the microphone. He was a guy who, no offense, but wasn't very good on the mic. You know what I mean? And you take a look at things, like I was listening and I'm watching the show, last week because I did some commentary and then we also passed it off and things like that. Yeah. And a guy like Clutch, he is, he gets his point across, very concise. And that, that's the issues with a lot of guys that they get from point A to point Z, but it takes them way longer to get there than they need to. So sometimes stuff gets lost in translation. I think Clutch is a guy who is gotten extremely good on the microphone. Yeah. And except for getting a couple things. Other than that, the stuff that he remembers, but the way he presents, the way he talks, he doesn't yell, the microphone's the same all the time. Yeah. If you yell into it, it's distorted. It's not going to sound as good. If you talk normally, it's going to work right. A guy like Hammerstone, here was a guy who we never let talk, you know what I mean? And now he's one of the best talkers in the business. He is going to get a point across. The faction, they can talk, but sometimes they're very long-winded, on things. Because then, because the faction is for people, well, it might be fine if Ice is doing the talking or Braxton's doing the talking. But in a lot of situations, once Ice is done, Braxton has to chime in and maybe Fresco has to say 3 words. You know what I mean? And it's like, no, that it isn't always necessary. Right. You know what I mean?
Isn't that funny too that Watson is the Harpo Marx of the group?
Yeah, Air Watson. He lets his flying do the talking.
Yeah, that's all.
I told him if he keeps flying like Brian from the wrestling scene says he does, he might become an honorary member of Sky High any day.
As we wrap up, any final thoughts this week as we head into I guess this is the 2-week out preparation now for Survival of the Fittest.
Yeah, we're ready to go. We just added a number one contender scramble match.
Nice.
That we have 3 of the participants already. One is Jordan Oasis. The second is Eli Everfly. Nice. And the third is Brandon Gatson. So, and we are working on the 4th. We've reached out to Jack Cartwheel. We've reached out to Titus Alexander. I reached out to Lucas Riley, who's not available. And we're trying to get those guys that, have been, making some noise.
Sure.
On the West Coast. You know what I mean? And it's like, unfortunately, a few of our guys are already booked in different spots on the show. So whoever wins the Vandagriff Jay Vidal match, will have a ready-made opponent, ready to go right after that. Because we've talked about it. Our No Limits division is extremely deep. So
we've never seen in my recollection, Gatson, for instance, he's never wrestled Vandagriff, right?
I do not believe he has. A few years back, he happened to be in town, and he wrestled Chris Bay, which Chris Bay had no idea who he was because Gatson hadn't been around for a long time. He kind of took time off, and they had a tremendous match. So, I've always been a big fan of Brandon Gatson, Yeah. Unfortunately, right now, like Danny Limelight, the kids have taken front and center. They're the ones supporting the family. So Gatson can, concentrate more on wrestling these days.
Dude.
He has to drive her to a gig. You know what I mean?
Right. Hey, I can't wait to see when those kids get to the age where they can start tagging. Because those young bucks, if they already have the acting skills, boy, if they got the athleticism of those two, Jesus.
I'll tell you what, that'll be a main event on Peacock Network. Limelight and his daughter against Brandon Gatson and his daughter.
Yeah. Hey, Joe, I think you got a Mecca match coming up here in about 10 years.
Who's the first person ever to give Maxwell Hardy a match?
You got it.
Who was the brains behind the idea of Maxwell Hardy versus Disco Inferno? That was me. Who stole the idea? Well, Impact did.
And I'm surprised that Maxwell Hardy didn't get the FSW championship for 24 hours. So,
well, he still may, but despite the kid, wishing my demise and feeling I should be like Vince McMahon and ride off to the sunset, I have plenty of good years. Knock on wood, knock on fake wood ahead of me. Even though there's many times that after a show or after a week of training, I say, please, somebody buy me out. Let me get the fuck out of here. These people are annoying the fuck out of me.
Oh, man. Well, let's put it this way. At least for everything we know, you're not going to get pushed out like Vince McMahon did. So you still at least will have some, some leverage on the company for a while, and you don't have to worry about the internal investigations of Joe DeFalco. So let's knock on wood that that you're around for another, what, 20, 25 years? Is that good? Another quarter century?
Nah, at 80 years old, I definitely don't want to be running a wrestling school. Let me tell you, I'll just want to go on vacations every month.
Well, there you have it, everyone. It's going to be an exciting show on the 21st. Everything's going to be shaping up. You'll see some more matches getting announced here.
Survival of the fittest is always one. One of the big ones. Against all odds would be up next. When you don't count the mechas, we have No Escape, the anniversary show. Survival of the fittest, and against all odds. Those are our big four that we, gear to every single year. Survival of the fittest has been around probably at least 10 years. And we've had, some of our, best moments and, some great things. Check out the FSW network. You can see all the past Survival of the Fittest. I know we had issues once again this past week, and Cox Cable. I was in conversations with them. Something to do with the upload, and it's funny. Well, you get up to this amount of upload speed, and sometimes you don't, but you get up to, and it's like I understand, it's a business and you got to pay more. But when I have the highest speed at my house and it's $50 less and the speed over there is less than half, it's like I'm paying way more money and I have no use whatsoever for the internet. I don't go on the internet just to go on the internet at the school.
Right.
We use it to do the streaming, which is once a month when we have a big show out. So at most it's twice a month. And, can't we do something to make this? I don't need 20 email accounts and all the other bullshit that comes across with it, Right. And then I talked to the guy yesterday because, of course, we have these offers for you. Oh, okay. Well, what's the offers? Oh, 60 days. So this is the offer because I'm like, my internet sucks and I can't stream right all the time. You need a dedicated line, whatever it is. We have fiber. Yours is a coaxial. Oh, how much more is the fiber? Oh, well, it's the same cost. We just have to put it in. Well, why the fuck wouldn't you put it in? So I'm going to pay the same thing. And you're telling me my upload speed, which is 20 megabytes, and my download speed is 200 megabytes. But if I have the fiber, they're both 200, but the cost is the same. Why the fuck would I have not wanted it? You know what I mean? And it's like, but we have an offer to upgrade your speed for a 60-day trial. No questions asked. Okay, so you upgrade the speed. My question is, what is the cost after 60 days? I don't need it for 2 months. I'm going to need it as long as I'm there. So What's the deal? You're giving me something for 2 months? I'm still paying the same price. It isn't free. I'm still paying the same cost of the internet. You're just giving me the $50 or $100 upgrade for free. What's the price after the fact? And it's like, again, it's always the workaround. Like, nobody can give you the actual answer. Like, it's a question with another question. Like, answer my fucking question. And then they get angry when you press them.
Right.
It was like I was trying to get my car, and it was the same issue. I have a lease. And they're trying to get me to trade in the car because it's actually worth more than it was when I got it 2 years ago.
Sure.
And the guy's trying to sell me on like some little mini SUV and this and that. And it's like, dude, I'm not fucking interested. What about upgrading my 2020 Camry hybrid to 2022? Well, they're not in stock right now, but we have some. Okay, well, I'm not fucking interested because you're trying to sell my Camry because you can't get anybody else another Camry. And now you're trying to push me on a car I don't want. and he gets like bothered, and it's like, dude, answer my fucking question. I'm not here going back and forth. It's either it is or it isn't, and it's, I get it. It's the car salesman and people. And in that case, it is the car salesman.
Yeah.
Like, answer my question.
Well, and I in California, in Valley Village, it's the city. I had been with AT&T for my internet, and man, it was garbage. And what I found out after a number of years of paying for that internet was what I was paying for, I wasn't actually getting, because they didn't have the right cable technology, whether it was fiber optic or whatever the connector was in the actual area. So none of the wiring was the wiring that would get you what you're paying for. And there was no like, oh, we're sorry, here's your compensation, this, that, or the other. It was just like, well, sorry, we can't give you what we promised you. And it's like, well, then, take me down. I'll pay for less then. But you're right. It's a game, and
you have to do all the homework yourself to find out the answer.
Right. I'm finding that out with health insurance and getting, into physical therapy on stuff and trying to get MRIs and stuff like that. And it's like, one side says one thing, the other side says the other thing, and you in the middle have to figure out how it's going to work, because no one really wants to do the work they're supposed to be doing. So it's like, and that sucks too, because I know, sometimes I've had some great success with watching the network, with the live streams, and sometimes it's been, oh shit, it's stuck. And it sucks that has to come down to the fact that the cable company isn't doing what they should be doing for you as a consumer, especially as a business, because you are paying more as a business, and it just makes no sense. And you're right. What a throw in. Here's 20 emails that you can use. Like, what the fuck am I going to do with that? It's ridiculous.
Right, because they treat, oh, well, you're a business. But it's not like I have 40 employees that are all using the internet. You know what I mean? It's like we have one computer in the office, and we're trying to use it for streaming. You would think, because of the advent and how popular the streaming issues are, they'd offer a different alternative for people who only want a certain thing.
Right.
Instead of everything is one blanket, account that, everybody gets the same thing. You're just basing everything on the speed regardless. Well, hey, you'll get an extra 20 email accounts. Well, I don't need email accounts. I don't need 35 plugs for Ethernet, or I don't need, and again, my God, the internet, and only one person uses it. Well, how would we be able to use it if 40 people were trying to be on it at the same time?
Right. Oh man. Well, these little headaches are the things that make you want to stay another 25 years in wrestling, right?
Yeah. Write your Cox Cable representative and say, we need new streaming account differences than a brick and mortar business.
You know what? Let's just start the campaign. Write Cox and say, I want my FSW.
That's right. Because, we've pissed off some loyal fans. Our boy George Furman can't make the shows, handling some personal stuff. And, the thing freezes up, ironically, during a commercial that somehow he was in, I guess. Yes. You know what I mean? But it's like, I understand the anger. You know what I mean? It's like, I get it. People are paying $7 a month for the whole library, but the reason a lot of people stay with it is because they know they're going to get to watch 2 shows a month. You know, it's kind of like the old Nitro Grill thing. How many times can you look at Hacksaw Jim Duggan's 2x4? Well, you know, how many times can you watch a Killer Kross match if you've had the network for 2 years? The new stuff is the new stuff. So if you go to the shows, you've seen the new stuff. If you can't make the shows, well, then watching those shows live is what you're trying to accomplish. Yeah. You know, you're not looking at, hey, let me catch up. I know I've seen it, but let me go see Primo's cooking show with Sin Bodhi. Well, if you've seen it before, you don't need to see it again. So, but you've never seen High Octane before because it's airing live tonight, and you might have a few friends over, and you go to watch it, and the shit freezes up. And there's nothing we can do about it. So we look like, we're the schmucks with the egg on our face.
Right. Well, fans also keep that in mind. If you do experience
cable, never liked them from the beginning.
Well, if you do experience any technical difficulties with the network, definitely email in because again, it's not like $6.99 is just being taken from you. FSW is very proactive in trying to solve these problems and to keep you in the loop on what's going on. So, don't look at it as, I'm just throwing my money away. It's definitely something that Joe and the crew are invested in. So, if you do watch live and you have some problems, absolutely give the feedback so that those problems can get solved. And fans, if you are listening and you want to write Cox, let them know that they need to solve their problem with their internet speed. And throw in, give Joe DeFalco a $200 credit. There we go.
There you go.
All right, everyone. Thank you for tuning in this week. And until next week, we'll see you then.